The Diocese of Westminster and all its parishes and ethnic chaplaincies strive to promote a culture of safeguarding where all are safe from harm and abuse, and where every person is encouraged and enabled to enjoy the fullness of life in Jesus Christ through the prayerful, caring, nurturing, supportive, and protected endeavors of the Catholic community, both individually and collectively. So this is demonstrated across the diocese by the provision of carefully planned activities for children, young people, or adults at risk. They can be called also vulnerable adults, but now the official term is adults at risk. Caring for those harmed by abuse, the so-called victims or survivors of abuse, and ministering to and robustly managing those who have caused this harm and abuse. We have safe safeguarding plans in place for people who have caused any harm and abuse and now are back into the community and still wish to worship and be reinstated in the communities, because we have to give people absolutely this opportunity. This is done through robust, safe recruitment processes for all volunteers and continuous training. So in safeguarding, we have identified 4 main areas of work. They are safe recruitment of volunteers, the recognition and the response to any concerns or allegations that any volunteer can come across during their volunteering services. We also look into how we can create safe environment, is the preventative area of safeguarding, where we put in place measures that will eventually prevent any harm or abuse to happen in the first place. Now, having said that, in criminology terms, you need to know that writing off a risk completely is never possible. What we can do, we can adopt measures that will reduce the risk to a very minimum, where eventually with these boundaries and measures that we have adopted, that risk will never materialize. So we can act to prevent that risk from happening and from causing harm and abuse to other people. We also believe in advancing a culture of safeguarding, which means basically raising awareness in safeguarding matters, educating people to understand what safeguarding is all about, and we do this through delivering training. The training is very important because training gives people the opportunity to see examples, to sort of imprinting the information that are needed in their brain to retrieve when they can come across a situation where they say, yes, I remember in training, it said that if I notice something like that, I should be alert, I should be aware that perhaps a concern is there and I need to report it. Okay, so we now move on to the first area of safeguarding, safe recruitment of volunteers. My understanding is that all Caritas workers play a huge role in the safe recruitment of volunteers. Elke explained to me recently in a meeting that we had that you all promote social engagement in the parishes and in other sites of the diocese, and you do this by encouraging the development of activities or events where you then will be requesting the aid, the help of volunteers, whether they come from the parishes or other places. Volunteers are pivotal, are central to make sure that these events and activities, social events and activities that we put in place to help others are run successfully and safely. So basically, I would like you to understand that every single volunteer that come to you and offer their services of volunteering has to go through a robust safe recruitment process. This is valid for both people who then, according to the role that they're going to do in the diocese, have an eligibility for a DBS check or not. So all volunteers have to complete a safe recruitment process. The only difference that is here is that people without an eligibility for a DBS check will only have to complete a package for new volunteers, which includes a volunteering registration form, a form called DBS 17, which basically is the permission for us to manage the volunteers' data, to process this data, a self-declaration, which is called DBS 4. It is the form that allows the volunteer to disclose any criminal records that they might have, any previous convictions or anything that they might have on record, and that will inform us in order for us to put in place measure or to follow those processes that we need to follow before we put the volunteer into working with children, young people, vulnerable adults, everyone. Okay, so be clear that everyone that comes to you, regardless they are eligible for a DBS check, has to go through some form of safe recruitment process. Okay, so if you're not clear about what you need, Helke and there will be other leads will be trained into, we are in the process of speaking to our DBS administrators and trying to fill some of the gaps that we have identified. Once we have the information and we have agreement at the common process for all, we will then have another meeting with Elke, Mariel, and then they will feed back to you the information about what exact process, where to find the forms, what you need to ask people, ID verification, requests of references, things like that. They will be explained to you. Once this process is in place, we all have to follow the same process. Okay. So there are rechecks for volunteers, those with both DBS and non-DBS every 3 years, but this is not something that possibly is imputable to your work. We will discuss this with Elke and Mariel and we will let you know. So in a nutshell, this is the safe recruitment process of volunteers, and at the end of the presentation there is time for questions. Okay, so we can move now on to the other second area of the safeguarding work with volunteers. Thank you, Elke.
Oh no, I've frozen.
No problem. Right, okay, thank you so much. Okay, so now recognizing and responding to concerns, a very, very important area. Every time you set up your groups of volunteers at the parish, first of all, I would like you to understand that every parish has got a so-called PSR. At least one PSR is in every parish. There are parishes that are without PSR, but at the moment we have only 10, about 10. The parish priest takes interim responsibility for the PSR work in the parish, for the safeguarding work. So if there is no PSR, you should communicate with the parish priest directly. But when there is a PSR and a parish priest, it's better if you communicate with both of them in terms of setting up your volunteering group, what is required in safeguarding terms. So recognizing and responding to concerns, something that you have to have a conversation with your volunteers. Your volunteers should be clear that every faith-based organization, every VCSE, so-called VCSE, voluntary charity social enterprise, and this very much includes our faith-based organization like the RCDOW, have an expectation to have policies and procedures in safeguarding, and everyone, whether they are in a volunteering or paid role, they should be clear about how to recognize and reporting concerns should they come across any during any activity, any event that they are involved in. So I put together 4 points for you because I believe that Elke is going to share with you this presentation. So these 4 points will be very helpful as reminders to you when you know that you have to set up activities with the aid of the parish priest and the PSR, the parish safeguarding rep. Please keep in mind that you have to ensure that you have to have an open and ongoing communication with the parish priest and the parish safeguarding representative, where social charity activities or events are encouraged or are taking place or are going to take place. So when you approach the parish priest proposing new event, a fair, I don't know, all kinds of activities that you can propose, but keep in mind that you should have a conversation about safeguarding in connection to this event or activity with the parish safeguarding representative and the parish priest. Also, please ensure that prior to the event, a couple of safeguarding leads are identified among your group of volunteers and nominated on a notice in visible areas of the event, including the name and the details of the PSR. So it would be good practice, very good practice, for you to have this notice. I was talking to our safeguarding coordinator right yesterday. We're going to develop a poster for you guys, for everyone who develop social activities, a poster where you can put the name of your safeguarding lead, the name of PSR, health and safety requirements, who is perhaps your first aider, things like that. So when this official poster will be ready, you can have this and use it as a template for your activities. So it also acts as a reminder that you definitely need to look for safeguarding leads. You definitely need to add the safeguarding details and the relevant information to make sure that the activities and the events run smoothly and as safe as possible. The PSR's details are on a safeguarding poster on every parish notice board. So there will be the name and surname of the parish safeguarding rep and their safeguarding dedicated email address. Remember that in emergencies, always you should call the police or any other statutory agencies, but this you would do this anyway in any other emergency situation. So where you are concerned for the immediate safety of someone, you have to contact the police immediately. Concerns that have to be channeled through the PSR, the safeguarding lead, are those concerns that do not require an immediate emergency action. So, for example, if you run a charity event at the parish, one of your safeguarding leads or a PSR receives a concern, someone has decided during this event that they want to disclose maybe an historic case of abuse because something in their mind, in their emotions, prompt them wanting to share something that does not require immediate action for the protection of others. This can be channeled through the PSR's email address. And our PSRs usually check those email addresses at least once a week. Some of them even daily. They know what to do, which is basically once they know the concern, they will share these concerns with our safeguarding case officers. And they are the people who then start an investigation with the police help or what they need to do. Okay. Right. So before the event, it's very important that you brief all the volunteers about the fact that they need to be aware to report any concerns or allegations they may come across during the event. And I've just explained to you how this process works. At the end of the presentation, you can ask me any other questions if this is not clear at the moment. Okay, so Elke, we can now move on to the safe environment. Thank you. The third area of safeguarding work is, as I said before, about creating a safe environment. That preventative work, risk assessment that we do, we put in place measures to make sure that these events and activities are as safe as possible in the hope that we can prevent those harm and abuse from happening in the first place, so that there is no need to share any concerns, because we have such a safe and thorough structure there that people will enjoy their events without incurring in any harm or abuse. We have a Creating a Safe Environment guidance, which is on the CSSA website. CSSA is the safeguarding regulator for the diocese. It's the Catholic Safeguarding Standard Agency. So please be curious, go and explore the CSSA website. I, for your convenience, have copied the link in this presentation, but if you have time and feel like you want to explore more, is a very useful website. Every parish safeguarding representative has been trained, has been inducted, and they know where to find information that in turn they can share with you when you sit down and prepare risk assessments for your charitable event or activity. So preparing this assessment is a requirement that we have to have in place before the activities or events take place. Yes, thank you, Elke. We can move on to training. So across the diocese, we are very lucky that we have access to Educare safeguarding online training. This is free of charge virtually to any member of the Catholic community. So encourage your people. They are not mandatory, but we strongly at the moment, but they soon will become mandatory for every volunteer across the diocese. And we strongly recommend that people at least undergo a couple of trainings, the child protection and the safeguarding adults. If they have more time, they are more than welcome to complete all the available training on the Educare. To be registered for the Educare, please contact our safeguarding administrator at the email address shown in the slide, safeguarding admin. The administrator will register you with your name, surname. If you can specify the role of the volunteers, or the volunteers themselves can specify their role. It's good for us to collect data at the end of the year to see how many people are doing training and what kind of training is needed in order for us to enhance the training that we can offer to all volunteers across the diocese.